Mile 40 is back, and I'm laughing headed into this episode because I think this is going to be one of the more entertaining episodes I've ever released. Today's episode features Justin Crawford. Justin is the founder and CEO of Just Media, a boutique creative agency dedicated to bringing audiences content that just means something more. Here, Justin not only produces and hosts his two top-rated personal development podcasts, Routine Project and Men of the Hour, but he does creative projects and consulting with his team for brands like NBC Universal, Condé Nast, Restore Hyper Wellness, Super Coffee, MindRight, Recess, and various others. Justin grew up living between Japan, where he was born, and the U.S. his whole life, where his family served in the U.S. Air Force. He's a proud 2018 graduate from the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, where he holds a BS in journalism and electronic media. Justin was recognized as a 40 under 40 honoree. Justin, welcome to the show, man.
No, I'm so excited to be here.
So Justin and I were actually just chatting right before this, and he's coming onto this show with a little bit of a hangover. And we were talking about how I actually haven't had a drink in about almost 3 months now. And the funny thing about that is, Justin, you and I were connected maybe like 6 weeks ago or so.
Mm-hmm.
And you connected me to Michael Chernow.
Mm-hmm.
And Michael came on the Mile 40. He was the season finale for season 3. And his episode absolutely rocked the Mile 40 community. So I bring that up because, he talks about his journey with alcohol and how he's been sober for many years now. And so, it's kind of funny that here we are today. How are you feeling?
It was like the one thing I jumped on the Zoom call and I go, all right, dude, I'm a little bit hungover, but this is the one meeting I have today. Let's rock. And the reason I think I brought it up too is like you and I have never met in person. And it is so fascinating to me that throughout like our podcast journeys or just knowing some of the same people, being interconnected through the New York City community, like that to me was enough to be like, yes, of course, we're going to be friends. I would jump on any podcast you're hosting. But the alcohol note's interesting because if people who are listening now can attest to this, like when you're an adult, it is always going to be around you and you have to be so particular as to like when you're consuming alcohol. And I've been such an advocate recently for mental health. And I'm like, well, why would I go be an advocate for mental health, but then continue drinking alcohol? Like that doesn't make any sense. Right. And so I've just been like, thinking about that for about 6 hours today, literally 6 hours, called my therapist, family, close friends. And I'm like, y'all, it's time to go sober.
Well, it's funny. I mean, I was saying right before this, like I'm 35 years old and, you brought up a good point. Like there really isn't too much value in drinking.
I think there's no value.
And look, I'm not even, I want to be clear to all the listeners out there. Like up until 3 months ago, I had no leg to stand on with regards to even having this conversation. I would definitely have the occasional drink. I love a Guinness when I'm watching a game. I love a glass of wine when I'm having dinner with my wife and with friends. And, where I'm coming at is really in terms of my overall wellness. Like, getting up the next day and having my mind sharp as a father, as an entrepreneur, as a colleague, as a husband, a friend, the amount of clarity that I've gotten, it's almost kind of, I'm not going to say I'm never going to have a drink again, but it definitely comes to mind the idea of, do I want to go back in that direction? Because I've kind of now met so much clarity that I perhaps was ignoring before.
That's right. And you have to see the other side, right? I think even that goes for anything in life, but if it's a substance, you just kind of like realize what it's like with that. It's like the person who smokes cigarettes and has to force themselves for a week not to do cigarette smoking. Like, yeah, you're going to have a couple of withdrawals, and withdrawals look so different to everyone, right? I don't know what the next week will look like, but listen, I have friends that have been sober their whole life, and I have friends who just became sober. And the cool thing about it is like, your relationship with alcohol, you don't even know what it looks like and how to define that until you get away from it. And it's funny how so closely that is tied to like relationships you have with yourself and the people around you, and I think that in mental health, especially, like everybody's trying to understand like what their lives look like and how they want to continue like living a fulfilling one. And it's hard to identify certain things when you're in the thick of it. And I was telling you just a minute ago, like I had to leave New York City to be like, oh God, what was I doing there? I literally had to be like, what was I doing in New York? Now that I'm in LA, and I'm like, oh, well, maybe I'll leave LA one day to realize what I was doing here. You do have to like really pull yourself out of it, whether it's your environment. I'll even say this about friendships. You have to separate yourself from your friends sometimes. Distance makes the heart grow fonder, right? I think it also makes your mind stronger in relation to alcohol.
Absolutely. You bring up mental health a lot, and obviously it's the focus of your podcast. Let's talk a little bit about how we got there. Why mental health being the focus for you and your own personal journey a little bit. So I gave some background with regards to your circumstances growing up. Let's start there. What was it like, being between Japan and the US?
A crazy, I was going to say nightmare. No, gosh, no. It was a daydream. I think about it now and I'm like, gosh, if I wouldn't change anything about the past 26 years of my life. And I'm turning 27 in 2 weeks. So to me, growing up as an Air Force brat is an honor. So my whole life, all I knew for up until I was about 17, was you are a proud military family. You know nothing but to pack 2 suitcases and watch the movers take your things out of your house and ship it in a truck every 2 years. And your parents are constantly not even like they're living and coexisting with each other, but they're so much more concentrated on the fact that like my dad was going to war, And so my perspective since I was like as early as I can remember, like the human brain of a dude or like a male doesn't even develop till you're 25 or so. So maybe it's not till recently that I've actually made this cognitive like awareness. But I think back to like 5 years old when we were in New Mexico. I kind of knew my dad was going to war, and then they would. So those were the big things, right? And so perspective at an early age. It matured me really quickly. So everybody's like, oh my God, you're such an old soul. So for the past 26 years, I have a lot of older friends. I get along with anybody from the age of like 5 to 100. And it kind of got me into this career because I was like, oh, if I'm really good at connecting with people, I should be an interviewer, And then it went from like red carpets to sit downs to digital. So you name it. And now podcasting. And I'm like, wait, this was all supposed to happen. I wanted to talk for a living because I can't shut up, And now I'm like, oh, but I also love connecting with strangers, like strangers. You take me down the street. I will, besides someone that's like crazy and homeless, maybe, but like, I love that. And so my whole life has been built on that because I was in the military. And as an Air Force brat, like, I don't know. Listen, my dad was constantly leaving, right, to TDY or deployments. And we would be stuck in a way like, where we were stationed. And so we would be stationed in Japan, anywhere in the United States we were at the time, like New Mexico, Florida, whatever. And that has kind of, it expedited like my life because now I tell people, and I'm not kidding. I mean, the name of your podcast is 40. Sometimes I feel fucking 40 years old.
It's funny. And, for the audience out there, Justin's being a little humble with regards to some of the work that he's done. He's interviewed a lot of names that you're well aware of: Adam Sandler, Elizabeth Hurley, Tommy Hilfiger, Sierra, Alec Baldwin, just to name a few out there. And like he said, he's only 27 years old. And, you grew up real quick. And I take it that, and let me ask you the question before I even make the presumption. Is there a place you call home?
I don't know if I've ever been asked that. It's a weird way to answer, but I have always had temporary homes. I say home base is Japan. I've lived there the longest. I think it was a total of 12 or 13 years. Or 12, yeah, maybe 12. And I lived there 3 total times. Also, my family's in Japan and Tennessee. And that's it, Japan and Tennessee. And so I was like, well, I'm half Japanese. I was a dual citizen for a long time. Like, I don't really know what I was going to do. And now LA, just like New York, it's temporary home, and some people, I've seen it work both ways. I have a lot of military brat friends that love to have temporary homes. And then you have some that hate it. And as soon as their parents retire, they go right back to where their parents were from in Texas. And they've lived there since then. but I haven't
Got it.
stopped that. My brother actually did that. He went to Tennessee. He hasn't left Tennessee since we retired. My
Got
family.
it. What brought you to New York initially?
NBC. I pride myself on that to this day. I loved the idea of leaving Tennessee after college. And I actually told this story last night while drinking, but I was able to tell the story very clearly to some friends. I was like, so I literally planned my move to New York. I was coming to LA a lot in the summer times to intern, do internship programs, etc. And then every spring break, winter break, you name it, fall break, winter break, I was in New York City and I was plotting the attack every single time. I was meeting with everyone from NBC, producers, anchors. I remember taking Michael Gorgiulo from Channel 4 out to a coffee. And then the producer of E! News. There was 2 producers at the time at E! News in New York. And I was like, I want to be on your team. I was taking everyone to coffees. Some of the people I actually took out, Anthony Izzo and Justin Wallach, who are both no longer with NBC, they got me my first job. And so when I went back to college, I was like, oh, I got this. I was like, somebody that I made friends with, very important, by the way. Like I wasn't making connections or networking or taking people to informationals. I was making friends. I said, someone that I made friends with at NBC is going to get me that first job. And it was Anthony and Justin. They worked their asses off internally to make sure I but like jumped line in the interview process. And I landed with Ann Shiner, and she's still at NBC now, but that was such a, I get tickled talking about it. I loved working at that company and being a part of that team. And my boss was my best friend. To this day, she's my best friend. It was a dream come true. I will then also say, like, New York, the people there, the friends I made, the friends you and I have there, the communities that are there, the lifestyle became way too much. And I say that now as someone who lives like on the west side of LA, like by the water, who I've just changed, and that's supposed to happen. I didn't think I was going to leave New York so abruptly, to be honest. I actually just left. People are like, dude, where'd you go? Because I was always traveling anyway. I was going between like LA, New York, Nashville a lot in the past 2 years. So I was like, oh, I just abruptly left because I knew I would go back, but I also noticed that like none of my people were leaving. So I was like, if I don't leave now for Justin, then like I would stay stuck and resentful for being in New York. I started resenting New York. That was the issue. I was like, I can't stand this place anymore because I was like hustling too much, running around too much, drinking too much, filling time in my calendar because I was running away from that apartment I was living in. It was too small, things like that. So, and then I guess like a lot of that is pretty relative to being a military brat. Because every time we've left, we abruptly leave. We just, all right, see you guys. My dad's deployed. I'll see you guys. Maybe never, but stay on Facebook. It's weird.
So, I mean, you kind of maybe answered the next question I had, but there probably isn't this hesitation about being somewhere new because you're already used to kind of moving around. So not that LA was necessarily new territory
at all. Yeah.
Yeah. But so when you started your life there, you weren't necessarily like, oh my God, like, did I just leave the best city in the world? Like you kind of knew, you kind of had an idea where you were at that point.
Mm-hmm. And I plotted the move 4 years ago. I was like, hey, I'm going to go to New York for about 4 years. And it's crazy because I thought I was going to live my life in blocks of 4, go to college for 4 years and then, go to New York for 4 years, come to LA for 4 years. I don't know. Now it's funny that like, because I've changed my perspective and the way that I want to live my life, I do think I'll be in California for a long time because a lot of what happens, I think, in your mid-20s, I could be so wrong, but right now what I'm experiencing at 26 going on 27 is that I'm valuing certain things and I'm taking better care of the like my surroundings and my environments and my relationships and such. And don't get me wrong, everyone's busy. Like we're in the height of a very busy part of the year, right? With business, and there's like 900 birthdays today of people that we know. I'm like, can people like don't not have your birthday, but like, holy moly, I was committed to my March and it's my birthday and I might not even do a party. But anyway, there's just like a lot of things happening. And I think as adults, you have to start like prioritizing and looking at things so different, right? And making sure that you're blocking and moving around the world as you know it needs to serve you, because otherwise you'll get swamped in the mess like we see everyone every single day.
Absolutely. I mean, as you grow older, time just gets more and more precious, and you need to become more and more protective of your time. You know, like we kind of gave the background to the audience, you and I have only known each other for so long. We felt like we known each other forever because literally the first time that we spoke, we were just rattling off names, and it was like, how there's no way you and I haven't crossed paths before and been in the same room before, and you know, our communities just kind of meshed too well.
Yeah.
But one of the things that has really stood out about you, and I say this in full sincerity because you know, our networks are both fairly sizable, but I've been following you now for a couple of weeks, and the material you put out there is so extremely authentic. You are so comfortable being yourself, sharing yourself with the world, sharing your thoughts with the world, not necessarily caring what anyone has to say with regards to, you know, what other people might be very vulnerable feeling putting out there. That could be related to the fact that, again, you know, we discussed you grew up really fast. You know, you're very mature for your age, and you've been through a good amount. But I feel like I'm sensing there was also some personal growth that kind of played a role into who you are today. And you've probably done some soul searching in terms of finding out who you are inside. Am I right? Or am I headed? Am I thinking about this in a good way?
Thank you for saying that, by the way. You know, it's interesting because right now I made a promise to myself on like Instagram, for example. I have no other social media. I mean, I might have existing logins, but I don't use them. On Instagram, I was like, if I'm going to use this damn app to connect with people or whatever I'm doing, sometimes I meet people on it, right? I'm constantly scouting and constantly booking, and you get it. Like in media, you just got to be on some platform that adds value. And I was like, well, listen, all I'm going to do is make people smile, laugh, or show them that like life is good, right? And people are good. So I remember the days I'd be posting this stupid like Soho House and all this stuff. And I'm like, that's not adding value to people that click on a story or watch a reel of mine or see that I do a brand partnership with some stupid company. I think nowadays I'm like, all right, listen, I'm not here for the money. I don't even care to blow my Instagram followers up past 14,006 right now. I think it's 14.6. I don't care to blow it up after that. I was like, that's plenty of people. What can I do with the people, right? Or what can I show the people and add value to them? But that's what it's been like. And I think now, especially in podcasting, that's an entirely different audience, half of which I believe aren't even following my social. And I never wanted to be popular because what's happening is that in media, I think a lot of people want clout and popularity and recognition. I was at the Television Academy last night. Never been. Everyone in that room, not knocking them because I just signed up, but like listen, it's Hollywood, and it was very Hollywood. And I was like, ew. And the reason I said it was because a lot of people just kept asking me like about my profession, and it was hard to explain to them because you go to my Instagram, you would never think a day in your life that or a day in my life that I was like doing half the things I'm doing for work. And so I joked with them. I was like, oh, I'm a stripper. And they were like, they like literally wanted to kick me out of the room. And I was like, I'm kidding. I was like, I'm literally in your business and I'm just here to have a good time. Like, cause I hate starting any new connection with someone with things that are so surface level or superficial. So I try to make sure that on social, to your point, like I'm posting little quotes, I'm resharing some of my favorite solopreneurs. I'm really trying to understand like what people enjoy looking at. Of course, I'm going to promote podcast episodes, right? But those podcast episodes are either entrepreneurial, business, and inspiring focused, or mental health. And yeah, that's kind of been, it's been fun to blossom, to be honest with you, because now I'm like, holy moly, I think I cracked my own code because I enjoy getting on the app to do those things now, you know,
at least on Instagram. It makes such a big difference. It makes such a big difference once you kind of get to that point of like not caring anymore.
Gosh, yeah.
And just doing it to really empower those around you. And you're right. Like I kind of got to a point a few years ago where I was like, if my content isn't putting good into the world, then it shouldn't be out there.
That's
like
right.
if it, like it really shouldn't be out there. If
Yeah,
it's
and then
not,
you're wasting time and energy at that point.
yeah, because you realize that you can get so consumed by your phone that if you're gonna do it, it's best to be intentional about
Yeah.
it.
And I've loved the idea too that, I mean, listen, anybody who I've hung out with, especially in LA, something that's matured me actually more than New York ever would have was in New York, everyone was preoccupied. A lot of people, even the most successful, richest people I knew there, preoccupied, always on your freaking phones, just like it was too much. Always ready to go to the next event when we weren't even present at the first one. It was, and that's just like, I'm stereotyping all that, but I'm just saying majority of situations were like that. Here in LA, I only go to like, okay, tomorrow night, comedy show. Great. Right. But the same people that are the comics that we were with, I took out Tuesday night and we had the most intimate present 45 minutes. Like it was just so, and we were in the Valley, right? Slower area of LA. And the day before that, I was in Malibu, friend's house, private, quiet time, 5 hours, like no distractions, all nothing but good relationship. Where I'm getting at with those two examples is I encourage people to do this. You have to be so intentional about like who you're connecting with, who you're around, and what environments you're putting them in. Because I no longer go to bars and stuff. I was at Barney's last night to play pool, but like I wasn't trying to get the group there to just do that, right? Or to like, but the intention has to be there, and you can't get to an intentional place with how you want to live your life, I think, until you've experienced so much and realize like, okay, well, I don't remember. Everybody always says this, like, so much of your life is understanding what you don't want to do and what you don't need to have in it. Like I don't need Gucci shit, and I don't need, $100,000 a month. And I don't need, there's so much noise and crummy shit out there. And it's like, none of that added value to my life. Therefore, I kind of like, when I decided I knew what I didn't want, now I have this very simple, intentional life. And it's crazy. I'm making the most money I've ever made. I'm hanging out with the people that bring me the most joy I've ever had in my life, and then that's above everything else, right? Lifestyle and kind of how I feel joy and fulfillment each day by keeping things simple.
Absolutely. I want to take a second to just let the listeners in on your podcasts, Routine Project and Men of the Hour. You mind just kind of breaking down each podcast and talking about the objective behind both?
Of course. So Men of the Hour during the pandemic changed my career, because I remember I was like, you know what? Still working at NBC. We're all remote. I need to do something for me. At the time, I was working at a company also called Bold TV, and I owe them a lot too. Those names you raffled off, a lot of which I interviewed because of Bold TV at the time. And I loved doing the Instagram live show stuff, or, doing social media shows, I guess, as we were all on social media a lot during the pandemic anyway. But, September 2020, I was like, I'm going to do a podcast, and I'm going to get some teammates and some friends, and we're going to launch something that's just different. So I was like, all right, men, let's just talk to dudes, because I don't think men talk enough. I know that because like you and I collectively, we do, right? We're open. Michael Chernow's open. Tim Timberlake's open, but a lot of guys still aren't talking. So I was like, let me create a platform, and I will go interview one guy a week. And of course, my media brain, right? The only way to perform and like compete in the business of podcasting is to just interview high profile people. So I was like, all right, Jonathan Bennett, Boris Kojo, Gabriel Iglesias, David Archuleta. If the four of them can say yes, everyone will say yes. So I got the four of them. Fast forward 4 weeks later, we launched. And then little by little, the show just kept going and growing in the sense that I was just booking great guests on the show, right? Zachary Levi or Levy, Tom Bilyeu, everyone came on that show. And I'll never forget how important it was for me to always stop and listen and actively ask the questions that would make them more vulnerable. Some of which cried. I would cry. I love that show. I don't know when I'm going to revive it though. My last episode, I think, was with Nathan Kress, the Disney actor. Nickelodeon, maybe. See, I don't even know, because I cared so much about his story as a dad. Before that was Kevin Jonas. Like, I'm still trying to understand where I want to go with it. But anyway, like there's over 100 episodes available now, and I still watch numbers go up. particularly episodes that were like in the hundreds. So like, and then the 90s, I'm looking back on it a lot. I'm like, people still are finding it, and it's really cool. So that was about 2 years, and about 2 years after that, obviously. So 2022 comes around, and I partnered with a company called the House of Routine, which also changed my life. Everybody I've ever worked with or for, just a quick side note, like I've got not one bad experience. Anybody who's listening that is like working for people that you hate, you have to leave. Or just like, you need to find the right people to work with. So anyway, House of Routine was previously owned by now my best friends, Mike and Pat. They left the business. It was a direct to consumer product company. They had the IP to a company or a podcast called The Routine Project. And I told the boys, I said, listen, I'll get involved with the journal business. I'll help you do partnerships. I'll partner you up with influencers, whatever you want. I said, I want to support the two of you. But this Routine Project, I don't know what it was. I fell in love with the idea because I'm a routines guy by nature, probably because I was a military brat. But anyway, I was like, we're taking that podcast, scratch every episode Jamie created. Jamie was the former owner. I said, scratch every episode, put my face on the thumbnail. I said, we're going to go after this thing. We did an entire rebrand, what I consider a media facelift. And we did the facelift, and we just went after it. I said, Ryan Serhant, can you come on the show? Boom, done. Shortly after, it was JC Dupree, Angela Johnson, Jason Oppenheim, Nigel Barker, you name it. We brought a bunch of people on the podcast. And I go, I think we have something here. People love talking about their days way more than they do their stories. So I was like, Men of the Hour is like a story. Routine Project is a secret weapon into people's minds, because the second you ask someone like, what does your morning routine look like? Or have you ever taken thought to how you wanted to build your business, right? What were your routines when you were 20, 30, and 40 years old? And when they start answering questions like this, they don't even realize they had those routines. And that's where I knew we had something. So Men of the Hour for men's health, vulnerability, and just getting guys to open up like they've never done before. And then Routine Project is like, holy moly, like you're hearing from entrepreneurs and high performing folks just about how they live their life. Angela Johnson goes to the grocery store. I say this to everybody, goes to the grocery store a lot during the week and doesn't take her phone in there and just wanders for hours. And that's where she gets all of her jokes.
Wow. I'm going to flip the script on you. Let's talk a little about your routines, because I know you have them. And I feel like you and I share a lot of them. Between, I could speak for myself, between the athletic greens every morning and the creatures of habit. Like I literally just posted something today because it's become so robotic for me at this point now. Let's talk a little bit about you with regards to some of the things that are routine in your household.
I feel like routines right now that I non-negotiably have in my life are all relative to health and wellness, actually related to. So if I'm waking up at 5:45, right, it's because I need 1 hour to function by myself before I even look at a phone or anything. So I routinely will get up at 5:45 and sometimes 6, right? Like whatever, but actually 6 sometimes works better. But I get up and I'm like, all right, for the first hour, I really go and I drink water. And I turn on the Bluetooth speaker to country music. It's usually Brett Young. I just listen to the music and I start stretching. I get my clothes ready if they weren't already ready the night before. I have the same duffel bag, the same process. Actually, my gym routine is actually insane. But I'm like, I get those things ready. I look at my calendar, and if I hate what I did the day before in terms of setting up my meetings and stuff, I start canceling stuff, or I just move things around. Like that's not a priority. That's not you know what I mean? Because your day changes. And so that like underlying morning routine for me was where it started. And then I just go to the gym 7 days a week, every single day. I have to be in the gym or taking a berries class with some of my friends here in LA. Because while I'm working out, I get ideas. I learned that from Mike Manning, actually, one of my buddies. In the gym, I think I have a self-love checklist on my notepad. Thank God for Jay Shetty and Ed Milet. I do these things and I whatever. I mean, listen, some of it's just to get the day ready, but then you are a product of the decisions you make every single day. We know that. So then therefore I have to make sure that every single day, besides the days that I'm hungover like today, and I'm kidding, I get up and I intentionally plot. What am I doing on this hour? Am I time blocking accordingly? Why am I even going to that lunch? Sorry, I'm not doing that anymore. So I've become very aware of how to set my days up because of my morning routine. And the evenings are a little different, right? I definitely have small things like, whitening my teeth or stretching before bed. I have a very specific shower routine or a very specific way of putting on my clothes. And I have a Manscaped bag in the gym. This is actually interesting. I used to ask people like Dr. Drew, like, tell me what's in your travel kit when you travel. And in my Manscaped bag, I have chapstick, a nail filer, like face lotion, Degree men's deodorant, and a little bit of like a Travel Le Labo cologne. And I'm not kidding you. I recycle those. Like those are the only things that sit in that bag. Oh, Q-tips, but I have the travel Q-tip thing. Every time I get out of the sauna and I cold plunge in the shower and I go straight to my locker at Equinox, in the back left or back right corner, you'll see me doing the same thing every single day. Because when I have that, you say robotic, I think it's automation, right? Or it's autopilot. Yeah. When I have that autopiloted, my brain can think and wander and because the morning, right? Like that's where I know my prime is. But I share that with everyone because I've used the same deodorant, Q-tips, nail filer. I mean, nail filers you can get anywhere, but I've used these same things everywhere I go. And it's always the thing I do after I get out of the gym. Those 6 things.
Appreciate you sharing that. Before we got on, we had been talking about the direction of the Mile 40 podcast, and I knew this was going to be a unique episode. And if anyone, listening to this, I'm sure has picked up right now, mental health is top and center when it comes to the material that Justin is putting out there. You had mentioned a little self-diagnosed ADHD prior to this call. Let's talk about that. And let's talk about where that played a role.
I love talking about these things. ADHD to me is a connection between the mind and how you live your life, how you decision make, how you eat, how you just live. And I was like, wait, I didn't think I even realized I was attention. I won't even say deficit. Simon Sinek put it really well the other day, and I can't give it verbatim, but it shouldn't be considered a deficit or a disorder. It's almost a miracle, or he said a superpower, to be hyperactive and your brain is constantly in a creative state. And so I took that and I was like, whoa, I'm never going to forget he said that, because I do have short-term memory loss, and I do try to get better about not wandering conversations. That's why I like podcasting, because it's a conversation, and I'm really bad at talking in sound bites. I'm really bad at doing tasks, but I have really big ideas and I have really good people skills, right? So I was like, oh gosh, how does that play into my work? I'm really bad at delivering. My clients and I are best friends, so that's fine. But there are days that I'm I just can't complete that task, because the second I do that task, my brain goes in 10 other directions to try and do other things that I know are also just as valuable to my business and my career. So then I start prioritizing those things. And then who works on Sunday? Me, because I have to, because those deliverables didn't get done. I guess, and the self-diagnoses was just a couple months ago that I was I'm going to take pride in ADD or ADHD, whatever the heck it's called. I don't take medications, nothing. Yeah. I just deal with it, and I love it, because for me, people think it gives people energy. They're always oh my God, you're so hyper all the time. I'm yeah, I don't even need caffeine. I'm just naturally hyper. And I've taken a liking to being hyperactive and learning to control my brain. There's little things when I'm in the sauna, I deep breathe, and I a massage appointment tonight. I'll go meditate while getting a massage, I guess. I'll do things to slow down, right? Not to mention my mornings are really, really slow. People would think I'd had no job. I spend so long in the gym. And so anyway, man, I in my brain, I just don't want to get Alzheimer's or dementia. So I do need to start finding out ways to really funnel in and out. And that's where alcohol becomes very important. I swear to God, if I end up with Alzheimer's because I didn't stop drinking, I'll be pissed. And I have to say it like that, because I'm I like to gamify things. Thanks, Rob Dyrdek. See, all these people I've gotten to not interview, and not everybody I've interviewed, right? Simon Sinek I've never talked to, but these people in our world of podcast and personal development, self-improvement, whatever you want to call it, there's a lot of great things that you can learn. But super quick, it's my brain won't shut off. I sleep really well, so I can go to bed, but that's a game to me. I like gamifying everything after I heard Rob say that, because I was like, oh, if I challenge myself to get this deliverable done in 30 minutes, and if I can't have dark chocolate tonight, then like, that's been really useful and very helpful actually in my whole like ADHD journey.
No, absolutely. I mean, I gamify all the time in order to accomplish the smaller goals, that come about throughout in your daily life. And I think that's really helpful. No, I really appreciate you sharing that and kind of going into depth about it. The more and more I think about it, I kind of want to ask you a little bit with regards to, you struck me right away as being the ultimate hype man. Like I literally, I had one or two conversations with you, and then I went running to my wife. I'm like, I cannot wait till you meet this kid. This kid is the ultimate hype man, and I have a feeling you are that way for all of your major stakeholders, your clients, your friends, anyone that you truly care about. I feel like you are that guy who's going to make sure that they feel elevated, they feel like they're their best selves, and they're bringing their most authentic versions, daily when they're around you. Are you conscious of that?
Wow. At this point, it's second nature. I was a cheerleader, by the way, for like 6 years of my life. Even then, I was the happiest cheerleader on the team. Teammates would be like, why are you so happy? I'm like, you're the fucking cheerleader. You should be happy. What are we talking? Anyway, yeah, my mom, I credit a lot of that to my mom. She's always been a hype woman. My dad and brother are very, they're very chill. Like they can care less about, having 900 friends, and they're just very chill people. They keep me very grounded. My mom, on the other hand, almost forced me into this, because her and I are natural, high energy, loving, connecting superhumans. When I say superhuman, I'm talking like we feel like it is a superpower to invest time, energy, and even thought into people. And, recently I've been such a believer in energies and just the universe just connecting people together at the right time. So like if I'm thinking about you and I get a text from you, holy moly, I have those things happen daily. Not even kidding. So because of that, I just trust that I've done this for so long, and subconsciously I will always make a stranger a friend, and anybody who is a friend, then you're at gold status at that point. You know what I mean? Because I want to support people, and none of it was like, I mean, dude, I'm still broke. So like, obviously there's no monetary reward to be in this way. But there's so much, I get a lot of joy out of it. And I'm on a journey now where I'm like, if it is not making me feel good and my brain is not getting dopamine, then I'm not doing it, but this has always been, a part of my life. It's a part of my DNA, really, I think. And not to even think that it's a good or bad thing. It's just, I like making people happy because they make me happy when I make them happy. When I say happy, I'm like, they smile, they laugh, or they feel good, or they remember something. And they always say like, people will never remember what you said or what you did, right? They'll always remember how you made them feel. And I can't tell you how many times I've made one person feel like the most important person in the world. And I won't see them for 3 years. And then I'll randomly get a call from them. Happened last night.
Hey all, it's me, Bishoy. As a marathon runner and endurance athlete, I've come to understand the importance of properly fueling your body for preparation and recovery. Every day, you get a shot at success. How you start your day typically paints a picture of what the rest of the day will look like. Start your day with a super convenient, healthy, and delicious nutritional win. Meal 1 by Creatures of Habit. Overnight oatmeal packed with 30 grams of plant-based protein, chia, flax, and pumpkin seeds. Vitamin D3, omega-3s, a probiotic, and digestive enzymes made in under 1 minute. Stop wasting time or worrying about what to eat as your first meal of the day. Start with Meal 1. Visit creaturesofhabit.com, creatures spelled with a K, and use code MILE40 for 15% off a one-time purchase or the first subscription order payment. Yeah, well, I mean, I could tell you from experience. I mean, when we first met, I was recommended to you because of the work that you've done with your podcast. And that's how we connected. And the way that you made me feel, truly elevated me into feeling like, this guy's a podcast king and he's making me feel worthy.
Oh, bro.
And so, you had immediate impact on me. And the reason I say this, I'm pumping your tires a little bit. You do deserve it. You should feel good about it. But my question for you then is, you're an entrepreneur yourself. You're building something on your own. And, you have a very solid foundation. And that's spoken to by the amount of people that you've been able to get in front of and the amount of people that you've been able to kind of come onto your platform. But where is your energy coming from? Like, who's pumping you up, and where is that coming from?
Just you. No, I'm kidding. Thank you for all of that, dude. It's interesting because I feel like people today have never been more selfish. I think everyone's selfish. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? You're living your independent life. But I have always believed that it's not supposed to be that way. I think we're supposed to connect. We're supposed to be around people. And the more you shun yourself, and that goes for anybody, even people who are listening. I mean, we're all selfish and we deserve to be at certain points in our life. But then I see trends, right? I see trends of people like not socializing and only on Instagram at the gym and not trying to connect with strangers and listen, to each their own. But because I'm the opposite and I want nothing to do with being alone and just like, I can go down a rabbit hole about that later. But like, I really enjoy being around people. I'm not even kidding. My massage therapist they've all become friends, or my barbers, best friends. Like, I just love that. And I get energy from it. So that's one way. The other thing is like, I don't know, I just call the right people. I have a lot of really close friends from my time in Tennessee, New York, and now LA. If I call them, I have to tell them, hey, I will literally say things like this. Hi, Dana, I need you to hype me up. Done. It's you have to. I have to like tell people. Or if I'm having a tough day, I call all the right people. I'm like, tell me something good about me. I don't know. Because like, I don't like, well, there's no other solution. I'm not sitting here in my head. I refuse. I text my therapist. I'm like, hey, give me something to do about this if I'm struggling, but that's why I tell people like talking about it and just finding out what's going on helps. For me, for a long time, it was finances. I hated money. Now I love money, but I used to hate it because my relationship with it was terrible. What did I do? Call all the right smart people. And I was like, hey, get vulnerable with me. When was the last time you had like negative $100 in your bank account? What did you do and why? Or hey, I don't invest yet. And I sound crazy for saying that, right? Because I'm 26. I should be knowing all these things. It's like, I didn't really invest in like Acorns, Mac, and all of whatever, Apple, all these things. Who did I call? My friends who do that shit. And they're training me, or like my CPA, who is also a good friend. Like, it's like, hey, I need your help. I have no idea what I'm doing. Now I have every idea of what I'm doing because you figure it out along the way. But anyway, I kind of went on a tangent. So the energy, I get energy from just like outreach and finding the right people to give it to me. Cause I don't need to be alone. Like even tonight, I canceled my plans with my friends because I don't feel like going out. But even when I'm at the house, I'm going to FaceTime my mom, my family, my friends in New York. I don't freaking know. Like I want to always be connecting.
That's extremely powerful. And I think that's such a big takeaway for the listeners out there. You're vulnerable and you're action oriented and you pick up the phone and a lot of people think it, but no one does it, in particular, like hey, calling a friend and hype me up because I need it. I mean, I'll be honest, like there have been times where I've wanted to do that. And I think I've only gotten comfortable with it in marriage where I'll be like, babe, hype me up.
Thank God you have it in marriage. If anybody's listening and you're in a relationship and you don't have that, you have to. If you don't
have that in your partnership, then
it's so important.
It's so critical to you because it's not a card that I use all the time, but when I do use it, it is like so incredibly powerful and it helps me.
I think vulnerability too is I have always thought it was so sexy because it's not like you're being vulnerable so you can complain and moan and bitch and grime. Like my dad used to say, he's like, bitch and moan all you want, but you ain't doing nothing about it. And I was like, oh God. So every time I call my dad today, if I tell him I have a hangover, he's like, I told you. And I was like, oh God, but you're right. Shit. And so anyway, I say all that because like my dad has been really grounding with me because he doesn't give a shit about anything. He's retired. He did his work for the country. And listen, he's still working and stuff, but I kind of sometimes shy away from calling. I call him every day, and my brother and my mom too. But I usually call my dad to just chat, and I find myself complaining sometimes or just talking through stupid shit. But he listens, and he doesn't really say anything until I ask for him to say something, right? So that's again like me being as vulnerable as possible. I was like, Dad, there was times I was in New York and I was like, oh my God, Dad, I literally just took out another credit card. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm talking like a bank credit card. And I'd be like, Dad, the limit's $1,000. This is like what, 6 years ago? 6 years ago. It's like I took out a Capital One credit card and he's like, what'd you spend it on? And I was like, well, groceries and stuff. He's like, you better pay that shit off. And then, so, anyway, stuff like that, you have to be so open about because when you say it out loud, it exists, right? It's called manifestation. So if I say I'm going to make $1,000 to pay off that Capital One credit card, it will happen. But the second I'm in my head and I'm like, how am I going to do it? I think I need to get, okay, how should I make 1,000? No, I will make $1,000, period. You'll figure it out. We're human beings. You can do anything in this world that you want. We literally have seen it done over and over again.
No, you're absolutely right. And I love that you spelled it out like that because the power of manifestation is just, it's so strong and it takes a personal experience sometimes in order to really be able to understand it. But once you do, you just want to repeat it over and over and over again. As we kind of wrap up on this and, we could be talking forever. I want to pick your brain a little bit with regards to some of the resources that you leverage for your own personal growth. You share a lot with the world, with regards to the material, whether it be through your podcast or through your own daily life. But I know you're an avid reader, and I know that you just talked about, you referenced Simon Sinek earlier. Let's talk a little bit about where your resources lie.
Yeah. So I'm an avid listener. I'll be honest, I haven't read a book in so long. I just picked up one the other day called Lighter by Young Pueblo. But
did I not see you just posting a book or
yes,
you
that's the book.
That's the one that you posted. All right. So I assumed he was a big reader. The guy just posts one book and I assumed
any other book you've ever seen was someone that I knew wrote it. That's about it. I just can't. I love your dog. I remember, resources are resources, right? So I think just as much as a book can be a resource, I really do also think that you mentioned Athletic Greens. That's a resource. Yeah. Like it kind of brings me comfort of mind when I know that I'm drinking something and I can't go get all those nutrients in foods. Like, cause I'm a chicken broccoli guy now. So like if I'm cutting and I'm just like working on my fitness goals, I do want to take an Athletic Greens and that's what I'm going to drink to like, really optimize that part of my life. So that's a resource for sure. Podcasts. I study when I listen to podcasts really, but I was listening to Call Her Daddy with the Cole Sprouse episode yesterday. Yeah. And I'm studying because I'm in Alex's world. You're in Alex's world. So I'm really trying to understand interview styles, how to like be inspired, but not copy, all those things. And, but yeah, podcasts are always a great resource. Your people in your life. I'll say that. Find the right people that are experts and even your friends you already have know things you don't. So I always tell people, I'm like, can you give me the spark notes of like this topic? Or, hey, you're really good at golfing. What are the driving ranges? Or like, what are those things called? You'd be like, Justin, it's called a driver. I was like, oh, thanks. And then I'll go answer an email. But that's your best you resource, the people in your life. So then I always say like, I have been so successfully in tune with what people are good at, what they know, and what they're proud to be good at and know. So that I can at any point go call them. Not that I'm just sitting here calling people all day, but I am. Even my clients, I only sign with experts and celebrity people that like are experts essentially.
Yeah.
So then I'm learning while I'm working with them, on the talent side. And then clients that are in the production creative space, the same thing. There's so much that they know that I don't, but then they come to me for what I know, and it's a trade-off. And that's been my biggest resource. And then of course, I guess if I have to give a fourth and last one, wow. I was going to say Google, duh, but not Instagram. LinkedIn's a good resource, maybe, right? If you're depending on what you're doing, it's a great way to connect with people. But more importantly, it's like, how do you stay in touch with people, and how do you find out where everyone is and what they're up to professionally? Because it is just a professional platform. So that's been really cool to see, because you see people get promotions and you see people, changing jobs and getting back in touch with you about something or whatever. So,
Justin, man, I mean, when I think about it in terms of the amount of insight that you just shared over the last hour, and just to recap for the audience here, he grew up between Japan and the US. He moved around a lot. He had to navigate his own personal journey from New York to LA. And, he built his platforms from essentially nothing in the midst of COVID. And now he's become a voice for the amount of work that needs to be done in this world in the mental health space. And he's leveraging his own experiences, and he's being vulnerable. I mean, he's been as vulnerable as anyone could be on this podcast, and I'm extremely grateful for that. And I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, Justin, thank you. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing all this. Thank you for leaving the Mile 40 family with takeaways. I have no doubt that this episode is going to impact many, and I want you to know how much I appreciate you.
I appreciate you for inviting me on, creating a space for these conversations, and more importantly, just, being a friend that supports a lot of what both of us are doing. It's so refreshing to see people like you do this, because a lot of times in media, I actually avoid a lot of people. And I avoid making deep friendships in this business sometimes. And I think all of us can agree, no matter what your industry is, you sometimes really do avoid certain situations with people. But you, by all means, were unavoidable, I'll say. And I've really enjoyed this conversation, man.
I appreciate you. Thank you.